Welcome to the Omnibus Guide to the Extended Estate Tax Amnesty Law.
Our speaker for tonight is one of the smartest persons I know. He graduated cum laude with a degree in English Studies from UP College of Arts and Letters. He graduated from the UP College of Law. He was an associate of the prestigious law firm Quezon Macalintal prior to founding his own firm, JustLawPh Law, in 2006. He also teaches the Word of God in Crossroads Fellowship. It's a free church that has the purpose of leading people into a right relationship with God and membership to His church. I'm proud to introduce to you Attorney Joshua Santiago.
It's my privilege to share with you the Estate Tax Amnesty. This is the last chance where we can avail of the Estate Tax Amnesty Law, which will expire on June 14, 2023. So we have about 11 months and a half to avail of it. So let's get started. What is the Estate Tax Amnesty Law exactly? It has three very great and time-limited offers. First, if you pay now, you get a lower tax rate. Second, if you pay now, you don't have to pay interest and penalties. And third is if you pay now, you get immunity from any civil, criminal, and administrative actions due to the taxes due. And of course, there's also a fourth benefit wherein all the filings are presumed correct and final. Carries with it a conclusive presumption that what you filed, hindi mo na niloloko yung government and they will not question it. Now, who can avail of the estate tax amnesty? A general rule is that the estates of people who died before 2018, with or without assessments issued, whose estate taxes have remained unsettled. It's only valid for those who passed away before 2018. Pag namatay siya ng January 1, 2018, you can no longer avail of this, unfortunately. But you can avail of the train law, which also has a lower tax rate of 6%. What are the exceptions? Estate taxes that have been declared final and executory by the BIR or the courts, pending before the courts, sa PCGG, sa anti-graft practices, if it is property involved in plunder, cases of money laundering act, cases involving tax evasion, and other criminal activities are exempted. Yung those who availed of the amnesty on tax delinquencies, expired na yun so hindi na kasali dito. Until when can it be availed? As I mentioned earlier, it runs until June 14, 2023. Supposedly, it was supposed to expire last year. But because of the pandemic, in-extend ng Congress for 2 years. So what is the tax rate exactly? Wonderfully reduced rate of 6% on the decedent's net taxable estate. So ibig sabihin, instead of, for example, before the tax rate was 20% maximum, ngayon 6% lang based on the net taxable estate at the time of death. So for example, hindi siya 6% but the values ngayon, but 6% the values at the time of death. So for example, your grandpa died in the 80s or in the 90s, then that will be the basis. But if zero naman, hindi naman rin pwede masiro si government. So nag-charge siya at least 5,000 per estate. How do you compute this? So again, it's 6% at the time of death without penalties at every stage of transfer. So for example, si lola, si lolo, and then for example, your father or mother already passed away. So there are 3 estates that we're talking about. So 6% as of the time of death of each decedent. So kung ba si lolo nung 1970s, si lola nung 1980s, and one of your parents died in the 90s. So yung value ng properties at the time, yun nga lang, may minimum tax rate tayo na 5,000 pesos. So the formula for the net taxable estate is the gross estate, the entire asset, less yung conjugal share kung may asawa siya, diba? So yun lang yung gross estate. Hindi yung the whole house kung mag-asawa sila, kalahati lang nun. And then you deduct the ordinary deductions and the special deductions. Under the 1997 tax code, up until 2017, December 31, 2017, the standard deduction was 1 million. Tapos another 1 million for the family home kung may bahay, and then ito yung mga special deductions, and then the ordinary deductions like for example, you paid taxes on the property, meron tayong utang na binabayaran, naka-mortgage yung bahay. So yun mga yun, we can deduct that even from the gross estate. From the net estate, that will be the basis of the tax of 6%. Of course, we are trying to simplify this as much as we can. The reality is, may mga nuances pa rin siya. But still, it's a great opportunity because the tax rate is 6%. Tapos walang interest and penalty because interest and penalty of 20 and 25%. You compound that, it doubles the estate tax. That's why this law was passed, is because a lot of people were not able to transfer their parents or their grandparents' assets for one reason or another. Kaya the Congress decided that it would be wise to do this, to pass this legislation so that umikot naman yung pera, umikot naman yung assets, hindi lang naipit palagi kila lolo lola because people could not afford it. Next is so the gross estate, the composition depends on the whether you are a resident and a citizen. If you are a resident or a citizen, so ibig sabihin, even if you are not a citizen, you're not a Filipino, like one of our friends, his dad is Portuguese. So yun, you can still avail of the same deductions, same benefits. So diba? So okay na okay yun. So gross estate depends on where the decedent is. So if it's a non-resident alien, only property situated in the Philippines ang kasali dito. So halimbawa, Amerikano ka, namatay ka dito, your assets abroad are no longer counted. Hindi na sakop ng Pilipinas yun. Hindi na nila ita-tax yun. Pag cash naman, for personal assets, provided that the amounts withdrawn from the deposit accounts of a decedent subject to the 6% final withholding tax imposed under the blah 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 shall be excluded from the gross estate. Basically, what it is saying, pag cash, under the Estate Tax Amnesty law then, like the train, the banks can just withhold 6%. And then the 6%, hindi na yung kasama kasi nag-tax na winidhold na and the money can be released to you. I believe this is done within 1 year from death. So the estate should be valued at its fair market value. Like I mentioned earlier, at the time of death of the decedents, the fair market value of the properties are the following. So pag real estate, it's either the zonal or the tax declaration, the assessors or the BIR, city treasurer or the commissioner of internal revenue. So kung alin yun yung mas mataas, yun yung basis ng tax. If it's shares of stock, if it's listed yung date of death o kung ano yung pinakamalapit sa date of death, bibili tayo ng dyaryo, tignan natin yung share of stock, and then the high and the low, add that, divide it by 2, yun yung valuation basis ng stock. So medyo mapalad tayo kung nag-crash yung market ng time na yun, mababa lang yung value ng stock, mababa lang rin yung tax. But medyo nag-peak siya. Tapos ngayon, may nangyari rin sa amin that the value of the stock at the time of death was so high, but at the time na we were going to settle it, bumagsak na. So, too bad. But ganun talaga. Ganun talaga ang buhay. Diba? Hindi natin masabi. Unlisted, not traded, we need to get the financial statements at the year of death. So, halimbawa, namatay siya February 2016, we get the financial statements of the private company for 2015, for fiscal year ending 2015. Proprietary shares or unit of participation in any association, recreation, or amusement club, the bid price nearest the date of death, published in a newspaper of general circulation. And then for cash, peso value of the balance at the time of death, self-explanatory. And then for residents and citizens, these are what you can deduct from the gross estate. Funeral expenses, usually depende ito at the time of death. So what is the applicable law? And we have that in our ebook that we will give away. If you want the ebook, you can enroll. And once you enroll, you automatically get the link to the ebook and you can download it and you can see a more detailed explanation. And doon na rin yung mga charts kung anong year links to the BIR website, kung anong year ka namatay, etong pwedeng i-deduct sa'yo, etong mga hindi pwede. So, at the last tax code, the 1997 tax code, funeral expenses, you can deduct up to 200,000. Pag lagpas dun, di na pwede. Medical expenses, up to 500,000 for, I believe, 6 months to a year prior to the death. Halimbawa, na-hospitalize ang iyong mahal sa buhay and medical expenses were incurred. I believe that the law allows you to deduct up to 500,000. Ganun din, judicial expenses. Kung halimbawa may last will, you had to hire a lawyer na para i-probate itong last will and testament. So those are also chargeable against the gross estate, and you can deduct that so that you get the net estate from it. Claims against yung mga unpaid mortgages, like I mentioned, kung nasunugan, so pwede rin i-deduct yun. Tapos meron din dito yung property previously taxed. Ano tong property previously taxed? So for example, grandma died, napunta kay grandpa yung property, di ba? Tapos nag-pass away rin si grandpa, within 5 years, minana mo. So kung yung share ni lola na na-tax na, pro rata, pwede i-deduct from what you will pay. So parang hindi naman masyadong kawawa, di ba? Kasi namatayan, tapos namatayan ulit, di ba? So mabuti naman that the law also has compassion in that sense and recognizes these realities that can happen in life. So, transfers, yun, mga shares in the conjugal assets, syempre hindi talaga kasali yan, and the likes. So, for non-resident aliens, these are the ones that are allowed. Pero mas maliit yung standard deduction ng non-resident aliens under the 1997 tax code. It was only 500,000 as opposed to 1 million kapag and I think the same holds even under the train law. So what do we need to prepare? Gusto na natin mag-amnesty law. Naintindihan ko na okay pala yan. Marami pwede pa i-deduct. Tapos mababa pa yung tax rate. Tapos wala pang interest and penalties. Anong kailangan ko, attorney? The documents preparation from the Philippine Statistics Authority or the equivalent. Syempre, nandyan yung mga proof nung namatay at saka nung relationship nung heirs. So that includes a death certificate, diba? The marriage certificate if there's a surviving spouse, the birth certificates of the children, the death certificates of children kung namatay na sila at meron silang anak, and then the birth certificates of the grandchildren kung halimbawa the grandchildren steps into the shoes of the parents who also passed away. In our experience, sinesettle din yun. Hindi pumapayag si BIR na diretso lolo sa apo. So, kailangan lolo, then magulang, then apo. Another requirement is from the barangay, a certificate of residency. And this is important for the decedent because we've discovered in practice, hindi lang yung nagka-claim ng family home, ito nire-require. Like for example, you want to claim a special deduction for a family home para may extra 1 million special deduction. The BIR also usually, most revenue district officers, they require a certificate para doon nila i-process. Otherwise, baka sabihin nila, hindi naman yata sa amin yan eh. So, sa iba nyo na lang i-process. COVID pa ngayon. Yeah. Okay, so next slide is proof of identity of the heir. So, of course, kailangan pa rin ng ID, usually UMID, any government-issued ID, or if the heirs are already of a different nationality, we need their passport. So, ayan, si Michelle Obama yung ating example. Magmamanas. May uncle siya dito sa Pilipinas, siguro. So, step 2 is collation. So, 1, preparation. Step 2, collation. Collate all the relevant assets, diba? List of assets. And this is the fun part. Minsan, hindi alam eh. That's why it's important as well to have estate planning. Ako, I'm preparing a love box na, hindi bastos yun. A love box where you put all the things that you want to leave for your family, yung mga receipts, insurance policies, copies of the title, copies of the bank accounts, maybe passwords, kung meron kayong mga crypto asset, NACs. So you will need that as well. And of course, for real assets, like I mentioned in the slides, we need the title, certified true copy of the title. Hindi naman kailangan ng BIR itignan yung original. A certified true copy will suffice, as well as a tax declaration of the property, as well as improvements. And pati na rin yung certificate of no tax delinquency. This is important because the government will not process it kung meron mga outstanding real property taxes. So you have to settle that. But if you settle it after the death, you can still deduct it from the gross estate as expenses. So, okay rin naman. For personal assets, like bank certifications, marami ng cases that the decedent did not inform his heirs ano yung bank account number. And some banks are not very helpful. Yun yung nakakalungkot. They will not tell you. They want you to tell them. Magulang mo nga yun. Hindi sinabi sa'yo, di ba? But by law, you're entitled to to those assets. So maybe for those of us watching, this is something to consider, that we can also perhaps talk to our parents, our loved ones, and we can tell them, oh, sabi nung lawyer sa webinar na dapat we put that information in a safe place and we make it accessible to the people who need to know when the time comes. Pinaghirapan nyo, tapos mapupunta lang sa wala. Diba? Of course, shares of stock. Kung old school kayo, meron kayo nito. San Miguel Gold and Silver Mining, hindi San Miguel Corporation. Yun, shares of stock, you will need that as well to present that. Or kung hindi naman, kung modern na ang uso na ngayon, broker certificate, di ba? If you use a stockbroker to do that. Club shares, safety deposit box certificates, insurance policies. Ang insurance pala, by the way, if it is irrevocable, then it is not taxable. But if it's revocable, taxable pa rin siya. Government pensions, retirement, death benefits, private pensions. So itong mga to, we need to prepare these. Although, syempre, if it is possible to minimize taxes, then why not, diba? We've had a lot of experience with properties that are still being paid. And some, we successfully were able to talk to the developers. Sabi namin sa developer, can you just, kasi they provide a transfer fee or assignment fee in their contract to sell na, halimbawa, binili mo for investment, bebenta mo sa iba, or in case of death nga and hindi mo na matuloy, it will go to the heirs. So pwede yun for some developers. Hindi na kailangan na umano pa yun kasi nga wala pa naman deed of sale, wala pa naman title. It has not yet transferred to the decedent officially. So in some cases, it can be negotiated to go to the heirs directly. And then of course, after the list of assets, the list of liabilities. Kunin din natin yung mga kasi sayang rin naman kung may mga utang, may mga promissory notes, may mga mortgages. There are some assets that, some people who owe you money, property previously taxed, transfers for public use. Kung meron kang dinonate to the public, ayun, pwede nyo i-deduct yun. Nag-donate ka ng playground, diba? Distribution. So, step 1 is preparation. Step 2 is collation. Step 3 is distribution of the assets. So, what you need is an affidavit of self-adjudication. If there's only one heir, for example, a spouse, no children, no parents. Kasi kung may parents, walang children, the spouse shares with the parent unless may ibang arrangement or you were married under a different code prior to 1987. So, yun. Or extrajudicial settlement, which is the most common kasi kaya naman nagkakaroon ng estate dahil syempre usually may family, may asawa, may anak. So, yun. Nag-usap na lang sila, usap na lang kayo, paano hati-hatiin. Or a court order, either for the probate of the will or if somebody files a case in court for partition, hati-hatiin kasi hindi magkasundo sa extrajudicial, then that will be the basis of the distribution. Yun yung present natin sa BIR together with the other supporting documents so that the estate can be settled. Now, step 4. So, step 1, preparation. Step 2, collation. Step 3, distribution. Step 4, ito na, malapit na tayo, computation and payment. So, we need the tin of the decedent. So, hindi lang yung buhay pa siya, yung tin ng estate niya. So, iba yung tin ko nung buhay ako, magkakaroon ng ibang tin yung estate ko. Weird, no? Kasi wala na ako eh. So, yung mga assets ko, magkakaroon ng artificial entity to step in my place until the assets have been distributed. So, the estate of Attorney Joshua Santiago will have a separate TIN number from him. Diba? Special. And then, you have to prepare the Estate Tax Amnesty Return or the ETAR, the Acceptance Payment Form, gano'n. Mga niyan, madali na. Nandun na yan sa ebook and you can download it, you can just follow it, click on the links. Other requirements, yun, usually original and 2 photocopies of each document. Kung meron tagalakad, SPA dun sa tao na yun. It can be an accountant, can be an attorney, it can be somebody, one of the co-heirs. But kailangan nila ng SPA. The document is executed abroad. So for example, the SPA or the extrajudicial settlement, kailangan pupunta ka sa consulate kung hindi pa kasali sa Apostille Convention yung bansa na tinitirhan mo. So for example, sa US, merong apostille. Sa Canada, walang apostille. Sa Japan, merong apostille. I'm not sure sa Australia yata, wala yatang apostille. Not sure about that. Yung apostille convention, the Philippines signed on to it, and basically hindi mo na kailangan pumunta sa consular office, lalo na kung malayo yung city mo dun sa city na merong consular office. So you just need to go to a local notary public who understands and can certify under the apostille convention your document, and that will serve as a public document na notarized document na we can use here in the Philippines. All the returns filed by an accredited representative on behalf of a taxpayer shall bear the information kung individuals, kung accountants or lawyers, so may mga information sila na require for us. How do you pay? Okay na, nandun na tayo. Bayaran na lang. So if you're a resident, decedent, the RDO having jurisdiction over the last residence of the decedent. So, halimbawa, sa Quezon City ka magbabayad. Pag sa Cebu ka magbabayad. And this is where the barangay certificate of residency comes in. If you're a non-resident decedent with an executor or administrator in the Philippines, halimbawa, Pilipino ka, pero sa Canada ka na based, the RDO where such executor is registered. So, halimbawa, kukunin nyo ko where I am registered or my legal residence. So, dun ko ipa-file. Pag non-resident decedent with no executor or administrator, wala siyang ni-name, wala siyang last will, wala rin ni-nominate siya. Dun tayo ang default sa RDO number 39 in South Quezon City. So, sila, mga hinahandle nila, bukod sa mga taga Quezon City, yung mga hindi namatay sa Quezon City, hindi namatay sa Pilipinas. Ganun. So, what's next? After filling out the tax form, yan. Acceptance payment form, woo! Ayan na. And then, wait for the certificate of availment, and then e-CAR, electronic certificate authorizing registration. This now allows you to go to the nearest city assessor's office to have the tax declaration transferred, as well as to the nearest register of deeds to have the property transferred. Pwede nyo rin pakita to sa stockbroker or sa banks to also have the personal properties that are listed in the e-CAR, which is proof na nasettle na yung taxes for those properties you wish to transfer to the respective heirs. After getting the e-CAR, yun, punta na sa RD, the city treasurer's office. Please note that I need to process the transfer taxes sa City Hall 60 days from the date of the notarization or EJS. But, ibig sabihin, pagka na gumawa ng EJS, yung ibang mga city, nire-require nila 60 days from the date. Pero mabuti sa Quezon City, inihintay muna nila na lumabas yung CAR. Saka na kanila sisingilin ng transfer taxes. Hindi kanila ipa-fine or ipa-penalize for that. Hey, for stocks, like I mentioned earlier, you can just present the e-CAR together with the surrender of the original certificate of shares to the issuing company or broker when applicable. Same for bank accounts. That's it. Sign up for the free ebook. If you have any questions, download our ebook, or you can also set up a consultation with us.